Welcome, seekers, to Moon Magic. We are on our way to the last eclipse of this eclipse season, the effects of which we will be feeling this last month of eclipses. We will be feeling all the way into January when the next eclipse season starts. So this last eclipse, since we had 3 in a row, is going to culminate the lessons, right? And I'm getting goosebumps already sitting here because I'm realizing that this one is a tricky one in many ways. And it's not because there's a lot of volatile movement with others, but like with new moons, we are setting our seeds of planting our seeds of intention. We are getting in there. We are sitting in the darkness that is a new moon and getting to our own rooted place. And not only that, but of course, this is a partial solar eclipse, so we're also blocking out the light in that sense. So you have this refresh, this darkness, this sitting inside in the wonderful heart-centered focal point of Leo. This eclipse will happen on August 11th at 18 degrees of Leo. 18 is my lucky number. So that's really cool. And so we're looking at energy here that has to do with our hearts. The vulnerability of being childlike and playful. The ability to show up to things without carrying along all the baggage and the learned survival skills that we start amassing from a very young age. That is really the theme here, where we tell stories to ourselves that are purely for this kind of survival mentality that is going to be coming up so strong. So love on yourselves truly for this new moon. It is beautiful and also quite heart vulnerable. Heart vulnerable. That's what I would say for this. Because the major aspect here that we're wanting to look at is Mercury is quite close to this eclipse. It's only 4 degrees away in Leo. It's retrograde right now. Not only that, it is squaring Jupiter and Scorpio. So these two are at 14 degrees in these respective signs. And I kind of wrote up the ingredient list for what that means, because when you think about this square, it's pretty intense. We have 2 fixed signs, Scorpio and Leo, the square. And we have Mercury, this rapid fire communication energy, retrograde, which kind of muddles up the signals, clogs up the the radio waves, so to speak, a little bit. So it's harder to get your message across in a clear way where people understand each other. And we have Jupiter, the planet of expansion, in this really deep, soulful energy of Scorpio and transformation. And you can see how the temptation to exaggerate or be impatient could be really strong with a square like that. Squares are all about a point of tension that needs to be addressed, right? It puts that pressure on things so that you really have to see it and address it. And that's why I say this month this eclipse is about letting go of storylines of survival, letting go of habits of survival, because 99% of the time, the things we construct within our minds, within the way we construct the narrative, within the way we go about our weekly business, is done with the idea that it will protect us from harm. I mean, of course, there's lots of healthy habits we all have, but there are these subtle little ones that seem like they're regular and seem like they are completely consistent with the rest of your life and seem even necessary at times, that are going to be asked to be examined here. Because I tell you what, I talk about this a lot, but a lot of times we create frameworks for ourselves, we create mythologies for ourselves, we create personalities for ourselves, we create plot lines for things that have happened in the past or things we want to happen, that it's this whole mythos that's actually serving as more of a prison than as a tool to help us expand out. often these stories, these ways we conceptualize time and space and identity are utilized in a way to make sense of it, right? We have to make sense of this time-space reality. There is a story infused energy to this whole thing, and that's part of the fun. However, it has the double-edged sword effect of being very possible for you to write stories that just are holding you captive. I always like to say with our defensive plot lines, their defensive stories, with the way that we kind of maybe go about life in really, really subtle ways, we are setting ourselves up with a nice little prison. We got our prison guards keeping watch around the perimeter. We have our set, this is how I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to be, so you know exactly what cell you're in. And you think you're just doing such a great job of taking care of yourself. But when you think about that, how isolating that is, how awful that is. And if you could just let those prison guards go home, take them off the clock to free yourself. A lot of times, this kind of stuff that's going to be coming up, Queen of Pentacles popped right up. A lot of times the kind of things I'm talking about are things like telling yourself a story of, I want a partner, but one that lives in another city so that I don't have to show up completely. But you say it as, I'm a really independent person. That's just an example. That could be very true for you, but sometimes we write these mythologies for ourselves. Or I'm just too outspoken so nobody will understand me. Four of Cups, of course it came out. I feel like this is the new moon. This is the new moon card of the century, I swear, because new moons are planting seeds we can't see. We can't see. We think we can see the whole picture, but we can't see it. I can't even think of all the examples, but this moon, you can leverage this energy. You can leverage this square off between Jupiter and Mercury. You can leverage the Mars and Mercury retrogrades that are going to be going on during this eclipse to help you. You can leverage the fact this is a new moon and a partial solar eclipse. You can leverage the fact that it is in a very healing and nurturing and beautiful and warm energy of Leo. You can leverage all of this, 10 of Cups. Nice. You can leverage all of this to just gently and nicely, the Lovers, all right, release some of these storylines, send them gently down the river on their way. You can unhook yourself from a lot of this stuff. King of Cups. Wow, so many cups in this month's reading. We have the Queen of Pentacles here with her grounded knowing and self-nurturing and care. And then we have we have 3 cups and the Lovers. Okay, so there you go. This is really, truly an emotional new moon. Sometimes I say that I honestly feel that new moons can be much more powerful than full moons, because when you're forced to sit there in the dark with yourself, when you are forced to sit there and really assess what new beginnings you want to put your foot on in the path for the next month or the next 6 months, it's the real talk time. You can't hide when there's no big show going on. You don't have a big moon and everything. You have to just sit there with yourself. It can be really intense. It can be overwhelming. It can be intimidating, especially when you're trying to get a handle on what parts of your mythology are working for you and what parts of your mythology are completely imprisoning you. And that's really the key to this. So step 1, with this first card out, the Queen of Pentacles, step 1, be nice to yourself. This is not the day or the week to write up all the things you've done wrong. And if you do discover that you have some storylines that you've been using as prison guards, as shields, as protection, as ways to avoid getting hurt, as survival mechanisms, it's okay. Laugh about it. Write it down and laugh about it. Don't worry. Don't think that somebody's going to mark that on a sheet and say, oh, well, you came up with that storyline, so now you've been deducted 10 points. It doesn't work like that. In fact, you are giving yourself a gift by just having fun, realizing where we kind of construct these things, and having fun figuring out what's serving us and what's not, and then just kind of cleaning house there, right? And that's the other thing. 4 of Cups, I have a bizarre fondness for, because this is the thing. we have to be contented with where we are. We have to be fully in line with that energy. We have to slow down enough to really look at what we have. And that's the other side of this. Yes, I am saying that this is going to be an eclipse and a new moon that is really asking you to look carefully at the constructed storylines. However, this is also a great opportunity to really appreciate where you are, how far you have come, how much you have changed, how much you have grown, how much you have accomplished, how much you have around you. A lot of times I like to say, think about where you were back in January, February of this last year, and where are you now? I guarantee you a lot has developed for you, just in your own personal growth. And then a lot of times in, where you're living, who you're around, the work you're doing, and your headspace. So that's what the Four of Cups is speaking to. It's speaking to law of attraction, quite honestly, which is that if you feel the contentment with what you have, this cup will become visible very quickly. The idea that you need to, one of the practices, and this is a great moon to practice this, one of our big goals is being these beings in these physical forms, playing around in the physical world, is learning how to perceive the good things around us. There is a specific muscle set, spiritual muscle set, that you can develop where you're able to perceive the goods around you. This moon is kind of stripping it back to that. Once again, kind of intense, but it's so funny because it's almost immediate rewards once you get into this perceptive mode. Once you decide to perceive, the floodgates open for new beginnings. Because look what happens right after the Four of Cups. 10 of Cups and the Lovers. There's a release. There's a release. When you give those prison guards like farewell and you send them away, because we don't need more of those in this world, either within ourselves or in our culture. We don't need them. That's not a job we want to propagate. Once you let them be on their way, what happens? You are met with connection. You are met with connection. Now, like I said, with that square off, there's going to be this desire to kind of want to talk a lot and express things and expand things and want it all to happen. There's an irritability there. I will admit there is an irritability there. That is not how we're going to get the most out of this moon, though. Pay attention to where you're feeling irritability. Pay attention to where you're wanting to call somebody up or where you're wanting to just rip your hair out. Even write it down. Have fun with it. Record a voice memo to yourself and see what's coming up. See what places inside of yourself are sounding off and feeling angry. Notice where maybe you need to recalibrate. Maybe you need to release. Maybe you need to stop doing that thing. Maybe you need to let go of that storyline. Maybe you need to let go of that person. Pay attention. Pay attention to where you're feeling that aggravation, because those are the survival skills. And what you're wanting to do is say, okay, I recognize you, I see you, I release you in the quiet. And that fosters fertile ground for this kind of connection. Now, some of you may be also, with this energy and the way that it's working, you may also be looking, getting involved in relationships, getting involved in partnerships, getting into some kind of romantic depth. Take your time with it. Take your time with it. Really listen. This is a great new moon to really listen to those people that you are closest to and not be reactive, but hear them. It's very easy to think you know what they're trying to say, especially with the Mercury retrograde squaring with Jupiter and Scorpio. We don't always hear we don't always hear the true thing that somebody's trying to say. We hear it filtered through our survival mechanisms. We hear it filtered through our own traumas, our own fears of abandonment, fears of judgment, fears of shame, fears of imprisonment. There's a lot of, depending on who you are, we hear through those filters, and sometimes we can miss what somebody's really trying to say to us. So this is a great moon as well, if you are in partnership, you are working through close relationships, to take those pauses and really hear, really perceive what they're saying without those layers of heaviness and survival on your shoulders. I mean, really, I'm so surprised the Ten of Wands did not show up in this reading, because I feel like this is so much about taking that burden off of your shoulders and feeling what it feels like to fully breathe. I mean, here's the other thing I want to say before we get to this King of Cups. I love retrogrades. I love the Mars and Mercury retrograde, because so often in our culture, it's all about getting things done, doing it on time, being busy with it, speaking our minds, getting here, going there, initiating this, starting this. Having an eclipse like this and a new moon like this in the heart of Mercury and Mars retrograde, it's a soft place. You can really use it to just, instead of pushing on yourself all the time to get this done and this done and be perfectly understood and get all your memos out, and spiritual and otherwise, it's such a chance to just sit and be with yourself and sit and be with others that you love and actually hear them. Actually hear them and hear yourself. And, we don't always need to be constantly pushing for the next thing to happen. I mean, that's where that Four of Cups is coming from. That's where the Queen of Pentacles is coming from. And quite honestly, that's where the King of Cups is coming from. Jupiter and Scorpio. It's like weird. I want to tear up about that. But Jupiter and Scorpio, what does that mean? We're expanding our ability to transform. We are expanding our ability to connect with our souls and our intuition. It is deeply sensitive spots, especially if you've learned to shut it down or shut it out, because at a young age, if you have sensitivities and you're able to perceive things, society doesn't make it easy all the time. We learn very quickly how to write our mythology so that we survive. And it sometimes serves us, and a lot of it traps us, holds us, imprisons us. And that imprisonment, means you can't hear when people really care about you. You can't see when good things are trying to come to meet you. And so this moon is just a really great toolkit available to you. Quite honestly, really think about it that way, like getting a box of paints, and a big canvas, and getting to play with this, getting to play with what your mythology is, and letting go of any parts that are no longer serving. And I would recommend being with people you love. Spend time with people that are interesting or that you're close to. Connect. Share these stories. Share these insights. Take your time with it. Listen in very carefully. Be playful with it. It is Leo season after all. And Leo season is about the heart. It is about creativity. It is about childlike laughter and playfulness. It is about jubilance. It is about all of these beautiful things. So there's no reason to make it a scary, heavy thing. I'm going to leave it at that, because I think it's pretty clear what I've been saying this last 20 minutes. But this is a really great moon for emotional healing, healing your child, your inner child. Not even healing your inner child. Your inner child is normally fine. Your inner child wants to just be allowed to come up and play. And if you give that inner child a little bit of space to come and speak, you'll find that inner child gives you some of the best advice and the best clues to where to put your foot next, as any other part of yourself. So keep that in mind. I love you all so much. If you do end up emailing me, I'll leave all my info in the description box. It may take a little bit of time for me to get back to you. I am taking some time for myself in August, because it is my birthday season, and I'll also be doing this interesting work on the new moon eclipse. So, be patient with me. If you don't hear from me for a few weeks, I will be kind of trying to take some time away from technology and away from the constant updating and connecting. So please understand that. I know you will. I know you guys will be absolutely beautiful about that, because you always are. But thank you so much for that. I will, of course, keep up with the monthlies and with the moon, so no worries there. The channel will continue to run. It just there may be some quiet moments within my Instagram at the Sarah Tarot, if you're interested in following, or in my email. So just keep that in mind. I love you guys so much. I will see you for the next moon magic, Pisces full moon. We are now out of eclipse season, so now we'll be working with the moons in a different way again. But once again, remember all of these eclipses, everything we've just been working through from mid-July into mid-August, these are things you will be now utilizing for the next 6 months until we get to the next eclipse season. So it's another chance to just make sure you integrate everything that you were able to get from this experience, and to give yourself a pat on the back for taking the time out to sit with these natural cycles that can help us. So I love you guys so much. Once again, I'll leave all the info in the description box, and of course PinkLune, she's always adding new stuff in her store. I'll leave that below as well. I love you so very much. Thank you so much for sitting with me today and listening to my thoughts on the Leo eclipse.